Invitational 6-0 with Sneak and Show in the Legacy portion.
Now, does Sam might not realize that McDarby switched it up. He might be expecting Maverick.
Yes, and that will definitely change the way that Sam would mulligan at the minimum. As Sam leads off here, game number 1 with a Polluted Delta, David with Gitaxian Probe.
The jig is definitely up.
Well, maybe. No, it's up. All right, never mind. Jeskai Ascendancy, Treasure Cruise, Force of Will, 2 copies of Lotus Petal, and a Misty Rainforest.
Sam deciding not to play the turn 1 Ascendancy.
I think that it seems, because he has no follow-up for spells in his hand, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of value to be gained there.
Whereas if he just plays the turn 2 Ascendancy, he still has a Lotus Petal in his hand as an extra way to sort of kickstart his game plan.
Either a cantrip or a Treasure Cruise or something else.
And it gives him another chance to draw a blue card to pitch to his Force of Will so he can hold on to Treasure Cruise.
I think there are some hands where Sam would just play Jeskai Ascendancy on the first turn, or certain matchups at least. But I don't think his hand had enough of a follow-up there after the fact to warrant going for it. David here following up the Gitaxian Probe with a Misty Rainforest, finding Volcanic Island, and a Ponder.
Sounds like Sam had a turn 2 kill the last time he played this deck, but no turn 1s yet. Still waiting for the turn 1 land, fetch land, double Lotus Petal, Ascendancy, Lotus Petal, discard Fate Stitcher, Lotus Petal, and, and then Treasure Cruise.
Brad's deck did not have a lot of those elements. He was a little bit slower as far as Ascendancy decks goes. No Lotus Petal, no Chrome Boxes, nothing of the sort.
Ponder, a cantrip, very powerful, very popular on the combo decks. Not good enough to make Sam Black's deck.
Yeah, intriguing enough. He wants things that cause 0 mana. He wants things that mill himself over, or he wants Brainstorm because Brainstorm's so good, but Ponder not quite good enough.
Yeah, he said he only had room for 20 cantrips in his deck. Gitaxian Probe obviously costing 0. Mental Note, Thought Scour basically being Dark Rituals for his delve cards. And then Treasure Cruise obviously being Ancestral Recall.
So Sam here starting off the action on his turn with the Misty Rainforest, and he drew Force of Will for the turn, and I would not be surprised if Sam went ahead and cast an Ascendancy on turn 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's even got a Lotus Petal to kickstart things if he needs, but the main thing is he's got ways to actually, he's got a way to protect it without having to lose his Treasure Cruise.
This deck fills up his graveyard real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's between the fetch lands, the Lotus Petals, the looting from Ascendancy, and obviously the Mental Notes and Thought Scours. There's a reason Sam can support 6 blue delve cards.
So Sam here with a Petal. David says that is fine.
Every time I see a Lotus Petal blown up like that, it reminds me of when it was first in booster packs. People just go turn 1 land, Lotus Petal, put the 1/1 haste sliver into play.
Yep. I spent many a summer using Lotus Petals to accelerate into Suatah Lancers, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely, got to get that down early. Early and often.
Ascendancy resolves, and now Sam's in this curious position of, does he want to deploy the Petal, or is his hand too good right now? And I think he says,
we'll wait.
Too good, sends it back.
Yeah, I mean, when your opponent shows Ponder and Volcanic Island, you got to be prepared for them to be comboing off next turn, and Sam would rather just chill, sit back on his Force of Will and try to set up for next turn.
He also may not know exactly what deck David's playing. This start could indicate a number of decks. Could be a Delver deck.
I think the jig is up. Once Ancient Tomb comes down.
All right, show and tell from David. It's going to be Force of Will from Sam. Likely to see an Ascendancy trigger here as well.
Sam opting to pitch the Force of Will instead of the Treasure Cruise.
Well, his graveyard's going to be pretty flush, assuming he gets the next turn. A big if. You see Sam here draw Pact of Negation. And discards it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if he had pitched the Treasure Cruise, he could have Pact of Negation and Force of Will in his hand. But I guess he doesn't have anything else going. Just feel like this is such a tough way to do it.
Well, if David's only putting say an Emrakul into play, Sam gets to go to next turn.
That's true.
It looks like Show and Tell is going to resolve. And there is Omniscience. And there is Emrakul. Much better than just putting the Emrakul into play.
Yeah.
David's going to take his extra turn. There's an attack and a trigger. Sam loses some stuff. 2 copies of Omniscience, not something you typically see in Sneak and Show, but very valuable here, as if David only had Emrakul to put in play, very good chance Sam wins next turn. Sam gonna make a go of it here. Falls to 1, cracking his fetch land. Decides, never mind, not gonna bother with the treasure cruise, and David McDarby very quickly up a game.
So Sam in the sideboard obviously has a few options. The Pyroblast and Hydroblast action, sort of just standard fare against these colors, and probably a Flusterstorm, right? Just to have a little bit more interaction against the combos.
I like Flusterstorm. I like the Needles, the 2 copies of Pithy Needle in this matchup as well, as it can be a very good answer to Sneak Attack if David tries to go down that road.
Or Grizzlebrand.
Yeah, or Grizzlebrand.
Yeah, I mean, we each put a card down. My card is Pithy Needle, your card is Grizzlebrand. You know, you do still have a 7/7 lifelink, but at least you don't get to just Yawgmoth's bargain.
Exactly. On Sam's side of the table, or sorry, excuse me, David's side of the table.
Yeah, David has Leyline of Sanctity. I think he's not gonna have confidence that it's actually gonna break up any kind of a combo here. So Grafdigger's Cage, Pithy Needle, Wipe Away, Pyroblast, Blood Moon, Shatter Spree, and Pyroclasm. Seems like out of these, I mean, Pyroblast is a gimme. What do you think about Grafdigger's Cage to stop the Fate Stitcher?
Well, the problem is that he can't be 100% sure what Sam uses to win the game, based on what he saw, because sometimes these decks have things like Young Pyromancer or Winds into Con where, you know, it's not necessary for them to go off through Fate Stitcher. So I think that he can bring it in, but there's always this uncertainty about whether or not that card's actually going to do anything.
What about Pithing Needle?
Again, if David's really intimately familiar with Sam's list, I think that's a card he can bring in. But if he's waiting in the weeds a little bit, then he might not go to some of the reactive cards if he's not 100% sure if they're going to work.
Reactive? I'm thinking proactive. You throw that down and you name Misty Rainforest.
And just, I mean, Gataxian Probes plus Pithy Needles,
Yeah.
I'm happy to go after some fetch lands,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's a little dicey when he's got Misty Rainforest of his own, but I mean, desperate times.
You gotta, you know, to make an omelet, man, you gotta break some eggs.
Yes.
As these players are getting ready for game number 2, we're gonna talk a little bit about SCG Game Night. Very popular program. Used to be on Wednesday nights only. We've moved it to any day of the week. What you see in front of the screen there is the December kit with tokens, foils, and pins. Too late to get signed up for December, obviously, but if you want to get signed up for the January kit, head over to starcitygames.com/game night for more information. Again, stores, sanctioned, unsanctioned, whatever format you want to run these as, just get players in your store playing some fun and friendly Magic.
Turtle power.
Yep, those crabs are catching the bad end of it.
Yeah.
As is that sandcastle.
Was that turtle the star of a playmat at one point? I feel like I've seen him before.
I believe so. I don't know. The SCG Creature Collection series is so expansive that it's hard for me to keep track of what originated where. It's tough.
I want to know when they're gonna cover the aardvarks.
Well, there's so many animals out there. Cedric and I have been talking.
Yeah, but aardvark is at the beginning sometimes.
Yes, certainly of an alphabetical sorting. Yes, Cedric and I have talked for a while about wanting to have the hippopotamus creature collection of tipping over boats and doing other destructive hippopotamus things, but sometimes it's slow moving over the Star City Games office.
Slow moving like a hippo.
They're actually quite fast.
Dude, that's what I was gonna come at you with.
Yeah,
Dude, you know your large bulbous mammals.
Well, one of my best friends, Gary Rent, is very into hippopotamuses.
Oh, okay.
Hippopotami, is that the plural? Not totally sure.
It's a murder of hippopotamuses.
So I'm up to date on all sorts of hippopotamus factoids. We have seen some pretty fast games. You were out of the booth last round, but we saw turn 1 kill. Jim Davis playing Storm.
Oh, wow. Jim Davis, in stark contrast to his blue-white stylings of Standard.
Yep.
Going the complete other way.
Turn 1 kill with a duress.
Well, you got to be sure.
Lost the match, but still got your turn 1 kill.
Yeah. Was he playing against a Treasure Cruise deck?
Yes, he was.
That's weird.
That he won game 1 and then lost games 2 and 3? No, it's not that weird. Cabal Therapy was heavily involved too. That was a rough one.
Yeah. Cabal Therapy. There are a lot of cult-like organizations that have therapy. It reminds me of Cabal Therapy that equally effective, but I think Cabal Therapy is actually kind of an underrated card in this format, though.
It does not get played as much as the power level would suggest, but I think with Young Pyromancer becoming more and more prevalent, we're going to see more and more therapies.
Exactly. The the prospect of actually getting the 2-for-1 also with all these Gataxian probes that you kind of want to play anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Gataxian Probe Cabal Therapy has been the beginning of a lot of speculative legacy lists that I've crafted up.
yeah.
Meddling Mage, because get quiet speculation in there. You can go get Lingering Souls and 2 Cabal Therapies, or just 3 Cabal Therapies, go alongside your Young Pyromancer. Problem is I sketch out all these decks and there are 87 cards. There's too many moving parts.
It's interesting that you can keep them that low because usually when I sketch out decks, I start with all the basics like Brainstorm and Treasure Cruise, and then that's 72 cards right there.
See some very strong feelings about Treasure Cruise in the format. What do you think the odds are that Wizards takes action?
I don't think so. I think we're going to see a lot of diversity today. I think we're going to see Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time be very, very strong tier 1 strategies, the backbone of many strategies, and they're redefining the format. I think that Legacy is a real durable format that can handle being knocked around a bit before any action is necessary. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Legacy community has a lot of appetite for busted formats and can stomach a little bit of this for a little while.
Modern exists to sort of let people play a little bit out of bounds, but not go too far. For people who have a lot of tolerance, as you mentioned, and enjoyment out of really pushing the boundaries of Magic, Legacy exists as that format.
Yeah, I mean, Legacy is, it's not like Vintage where people are just like, yeah, if I put this card that costs 2 in play, I get a Grizzlebrand every turn. Or this other card that costs 2, I get to take all of the turns. It's not that kind of thing, but it's actually pretty absurd compared to Modern.
Yeah, it's much closer to Vintage than it is to Modern. As you see Sam here, keep his mulligan to 6, lead off with a Flooded Strand for a Volcanic Island.
Well, it was. I think Treasure Cruise is the great equalizer. Right now, Modern looks a lot more like Legacy.
Sure.
When there's some number of people who are just playing Legacy decks in Modern. So Sam on the mulligan, not looking too bad.
Gataxian Probe to open up the action, and you see the opening hand here from David of 3 lands, 2 islands in the Misty Rainforest, a Brainstorm to go along with a Force of Will, and Sneak Attack plus Gristlebrand. A slow hand, but one with all the components.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the type of hand that you want to brainstorm and look for an Ancient Tomb or a City of Traders. Misty Rainforest, being able to shuffle away whatever you don't like from the brainstorm, a very strong option. This might actually be the type of hand where we see McDarby not brainstorm on turn 1, right?
And just wait for more information, wait for his...
And the ability to shuffle away 2 cards instead of just 1.
Yeah.
By waiting until he has a Misty Rainforest on the same turn.
There is, of course, the risk of waiting in Legacy where you may not get to actually resolve your spell and do everything as efficiently as you would like, but it would not surprise me for David to show a little bit of patience here. You see just an island from David, and then turn Thought Scour from Sam.
Wow.
Targeting himself, puts a Fate Stitcher in the graveyard. Step 1, out of the way.
That's a big play. So Sam doesn't really have a lot going on yet, but at least he's stocking his graveyard. He's got the Fate Stitcher, so now he just needs the Ascendancy.
This could be a turn 2 Treasure Cruise.
Definitely could be.
I think that Sam would prefer to keep the Fate Stitcher in the graveyard, but it is an option.
It looks like he has another Thought Scour in his hand, though. And if he does, he can Thought Scour himself, have enough cards to Treasure Cruise without even losing the Fate Stitcher.
We'll see how Sam wants to proceed momentarily, but the ability of this deck to get cards in his graveyard is incredible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Sam thinks he can actually race 1 with nothing in terms of getting cards into the yard.
Wow.
Yeah.
No small challenge. But Sam just going to pass it back. David elects not to brainstorm. As you mentioned before, just goes into his second turn.
Remember, Sam knows that McDarby has a Force of Will, so he doesn't want to just walk his cruise face first into it.
Getting a brainstorm out of David's hand is not a bad prize here, though. You see David pass and Sam with an end of turn. Thought Scour again on himself.
Hitting Force of Will and Treasure Cruise. Not the 2 cards he wanted to flip, but at least he's got a graveyard that's even more stocked. Looks like Sam is going to make a note of things.
Here is mental note.
It's like a Thought Scour that can't be misdirectioned.
Yeah. You can't mess it up.
Yep.
Can't misclick it. David still says, go ahead, take your turn. Moving to Sam's third turn. Scalding Tarn, sacrificed. Sam pulls forward another volcanic island.
No actual red or white cards in Sam's deck besides the Jeskai Ascendancy, with the pseudo exception of Gut Shot. Not the reddest red card to ever red card, but here after sideboarding, he has access to Pyroblast as well. So the colored mana being somewhat important.
Here is a Treasure Cruise from Sam for 1 mana. Now David put to the test here. Does he want to use his Force of Will? And David says, no, you can go ahead.
Wow, that's quite the line here. The sort of, you have so few things I care about. Go ahead, draw cards. I'm just going to wait and try to fight over the Ascendancies themselves.
Or perhaps to just push through his own kill.
Ah, a good point.
And now Sam with a Gataxian Probe. Sees the same hand. Looks like in the intervening turns, David has picked up an Emrakul and a Scalding Tarn to go alongside his Force of Will, Brainstorm, Island, Sneak Attack, and Gristlebrand.
Well, and part of it is that he doesn't want to pitch the Brainstorm to the Force of Will. He wants to Brainstorm, but he wants to wait till the last possible minute to see if he needs to pitch the Brainstorm.
Well, now with his hand being pretty mana heavy, as another Treasure Cruise here from Sam, and with a second creature to put into play through Sneak Attack, I think now is a reasonable spot for David to go ahead and Brainstorm.
So Sam continuing to cruise away.
Sam with a Lotus Petal.
Yeah, he's got to keep it going. He's got so many cards, but he might just pitch the Fate Stitcher to accelerate.
And it appears as though Sam is ready to enter discard.
Now, it's interesting choosing not to play the Chrome Mox here. Because he doesn't play the Chrome Mox, he can't pack the negation.
And Sam's going to let go of the Tundra. David has drawn Force of Will for his draw step.
So he chose not to Brainstorm there.
Surprising amount of discipline here.
Because he wants to wait and potentially set up the double Force of Will now.
Just passing the turn, Sam's going to mental note again. Draws a Pyroblast, big draw.
Absolutely, that's huge.
David's going to take this opportunity to Brainstorm. Sam says that resolves. David draws Beseju, Omniscience, Flooded Strand. Beseju presents a pretty attractive line of play.
It's 2 turns away, though. Does he have that kind of time?
See, David gets to shuffle away whatever he doesn't want, so we'll find out momentarily if that's the line of play he wants to take. David puts back 2, passes the turn back to Sam, who now begins his. Path of Negation, the draw for Sam.
So Sam stacking up the interaction here, having access to both Pyroblast and Pact of Negation with a Lotus Petal so that he can actually pay for it.
Just missing one thing.
Jeskai Ascendancy. Oh, is Sam going to go on beatdown now?
It might be time to go. What time is it? It's beat down a clock.
Yeah.
There's the Winzendikon.
2/2 haste flyer for 1.
What a deal. You wasteland, that's fine, comes right on back.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason why Sam has 1 basic island in his deck.
Just have a safe target to put it on. So this is a way to both trigger Ascendancy and kill with Ascendancy in 1 turn. We saw Brad play Fairy Conclave to that end, though that's a little bit less smooth than having a Winzendikon.
Yeah, I mean, to play Fairy Conclave in Legacy is less smooth by by all accounts.
David gonna go ahead and shuffle away. Falling to 17, now under just the tiniest bit of pressure.
Looming doom. Winzendikon. This is Sam playing aggro control at this point.
Sideboard into a completely different deck.
Yes. remember, this isn't a this position here is not a 9-turn clock. This is an 8-turn clock. The Fate Stitcher can jump out of the graveyard at a moment's notice and present hasty beats.
David draws for his turn. It's a Misty Rainforest.
Question is McDarby going to go for it from this position, or does he wait one more turn figuring, well, I'll need that turn to actually use the sneak attack anyway?
Well, he's got to be really worried about Sam's hand at this point because Sam's looked at a million cards. It's hard to imagine that your Force of Wills alone are enough to push through.
See McDarby, from the looks of it, leading with the sneak attack, seeing what kind of a response it draws from Sam.
If he's willing to go ahead here and crack the fetch land, falling to 16, reducing the clock even further, I imagine it means he's making his move.
Is this the showdown?
I think so. It's going to be a showdown at least. You see sneak attack here from David, and Sam immediately with Path of Negation.
This is going to disrupt Sam's ability to beat down with Wen Zendikon.
Yep, a pretty big cost. Sam pays for the pact. Plays a Crow Mox. Gives up the second Wen Zendikon, a questionable play.
That could have been so fast of a clock.
That's 4 turns. Sam must
If
have big
that.
plans. Yeah, could possibly be more. David with a Gataxian Probe.
I must know.
Yes, now I would want to know too. There's a hand of Pyroblast, Flusterstorm, Path of Negation, Fate Stitcher.
Wow, you could even just get the Fate Stitcher down there, speed it up even more.
I know there's a lot of lines of play available to Sam here. I don't know if I like giving up on the Zendikon, but we'll see how it plays out.
I actually kind of wonder if you should just put the Fate Stitcher down there, keep the Wen Zendikon, and actually clock him. You've got so much permission.
And hard to imagine that David has anything like Pyroclasm against you post-board to interfere with it. Got to assume it's good, and there's the Beseju.
Yeah, McDarby might, if at this rate, he might need to get Emrakul down just to play D.
Lotus Petal, the draw for Sam.
See? I told you. Don't you wish you had a Wen Zendikon now?
Yep. No,
Get me.
like I said. All right, Sam with a Lotus Petal. Plays the Fate Stitcher. Sam on all sorts of backup plans this game.
But see, now he can't even swing with the Wen Zendikon. Because he's trying to hold up Flusterstorm and Pyroblast. Then again, maybe he just doesn't need to.
Well, against the Beseju, trying to hold up the counterspells,
It's true.
it's tougher.
It's true.
Hiya! 2 points of damage coming across. Show and tell the draw for David.
Yeah, no question. Beseju is offering a lot of very attractive lines, as you say.
Taking 2 here, I think. Here comes show and tell. And now here's Emrakul through the Omniscience.
And that's all she wrote.
And really intriguing to see the Omniscience come up 2 games in a row for David. Not a card you typically see in Sneak Attack, but both these games, it's questionable whether or not Emrakul on its own would have been good enough if it was just put into play through show and tell.
Sam extends the hand to McDarby. Advances to 7-0.
I really feel like the point at which that game got away from his hand is where he gave up on the second Wen Zendikon.
Yeah.
Far be it from me, Sam's quite a bit better at Magic than I am, but I feel like that was the turning point of the match.
See, I was thinking Sam needed to just go turn 1, Wen Zendikon. Turn 2, Lotus Petal, Wen Zendikon.
Yep. Already you've got him on
Although
the
I guess
ropes.
that one would be able to attack it either. So maybe you just curve out, Wen Zendikon's on up.
Right, and if you ever find an Ascendancy, beautiful, and if not,
Yeah,
that's still
an anthem.
fine.
Yeah. When you have 2 Wen Zendikons in play, I mean, you gut shot McDarby upstairs. That's like 3 extra damage right there, and you get to loot.
So David McDarby now 7-0. great start for him, fresh off the heels of his win at the Legacy Open in Portland last weekend. Player with quite a few Open top 8s to his name, did not have a win before Portland, but on a bit of a heater here. Great start for him as we're going to be moving over.